Hey, what's up, phone lovers, and welcome to the Mobile Roar podcast for the week of September 19th, 2014. I am Joe Peter.
And I am Christopher Chavez.
And I am Kevin Kraus.
The podcast got a lot more mature this week because Chris is a grown-up now. He has a desk.
Look at this. Look at all this.
No wobbly cam anymore. Wow.
Got my Ninja Turtles set up on my desk and everything. Raphael. It's great.
That is pretty nice. I think that's worth 5-star review on iTunes for that. Subtle plug there. All right, so got a lot of news to talk about this week, and I think we'll start off with some reviews that we posted earlier this week. Moto 360 review, Moto G review, and we got that Moto X review coming up soon too. But do you guys want to talk about these devices that you reviewed? Give some final thoughts on them, I guess, because we did talk about them a lot last week, but now you've actually used them for a while.
I guess I'll go first with the Moto 360. So I had the pleasure of reviewing the Moto 360, and I don't know, there was a lot of reviews around the net, and some early reports that like battery life was the absolute worst on it. I think it was like the Wall Street Journal or something that published a post, and this was like the first day that the Moto 360 was like released, or not released, but was given to press. So I think it was Joanna Stern, but she was saying how it had like 10 hours of battery life and this and that, but that's just completely not true at all. I mean, actually, it could be true because by default it has ambient mode display off, and when it's on, normally it just has the time always lit. Like the display is always lit, but very dimly. And on the LG G Watch, it's not a problem. On the Samsung Gear Live, it's not a problem. But on the 360, it's like the worst thing ever because of the processor or something. It doesn't have the ability to run in a low power state. So Motorola actually turned it off by default. And I guess this chick, she left it on or turned it on or something. It was just completely like did not like the battery life, which was like 10 hours or something. But since then, there was like a software update which fixed a bunch of stuff, made it run a lot smoother, and it's awesome. I think it's such a cool watch. I know Joe was like intent on buying one at first, but you kind of got turned off by these reports of battery life or something, right?
I think performance more so, because I think I could learn to live with the battery life, but the performance would annoy me.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of an issue too. There's a noticeable lag, I guess you can say, or like it's not really smooth. The UI is kind of a little bit jerky and stuff. I mean, it kind of looks like the refresh rate is lower, but I don't think that's the deal at all. I think it's just that TIO map from the Droid X. So we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. It's just not able to do things. Even on a smartwatch, they have force close. Like all of Android Wear force closed on me last night. It was like Android Wear is not responding. Would you like to force close? Like, how do you force close Android Wear? But whatever.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was possible.
So actually, I'm wondering if it's not like some kind of Android OS and then Android Wear runs as an app. I'm sure we can look into that later.
Android Wear is probably like a launcher on top of the core Android.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And they managed to strip it down to just the very basics. But
I mean, I've had in the past with other Android phones where the Android launcher itself has crashed as a whole, and you've just been left with having to restart everything. But
yeah, that's exactly what happened here. Just kind of boop. And that was like kind of the first bug I've really had since I've worn it. And you know, I've been working out lately. Me and Edgar got a gym membership, so we've been like hitting the gym. And I'm like always monitoring my heart rate and doing all that stuff. I don't know why I'm monitoring it, because I don't know what I'm looking for. But it's nice to know.
Oh, that's the number. Oh, okay. Sure.
Keeping tabs. I'm keeping tabs on my heart rate, so making sure it doesn't go into like the black zone or something and I die. Like, oh shoot, I'm dead. I'm dead right now. That's horrible.
Yeah, your watch will know before it reaches you, the rest of you, that you're dead.
No, but there's an interesting app where it's it's like Motorola's thing. It's called Heart Activity, and basically it just I guess everyone you plug in your information, your weight and your height and all that, and it every day it tells you to reach 30 minutes of some type of activity, I guess. So at the end of the day, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, I'm only halfway of my daily activity goal, I guess. But for some reason, as someone like, we sit at our desks or our couch or our bed or whatever all day just writing stuff. I don't know how, but every single day I've hit that 30-minute activity goal, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything. So I don't know if it's like me plugging away on the computer is like.
No, it's like your heart rate jumps up all the time when you see all that exciting Android news. And oh my god! Like...
I wonder if that's it too, because I take I drink a lot of caffeine because I'm like, I'm really sleepy and whatnot. And I feel like my heart's always like da-da-da-da-da-da, and I think it just thinks I'm like working out. I'm like vigorously just working out.
30 minutes a day, though. I mean, you could just like get up and go to the fridge a couple times.
Yeah.
And maybe you'd get 30 minutes a day. So.
I mean, even yesterday was it said I had 1,000 steps, and that was almost my daily goal. And I've literally, I don't even leave the apartment, so that's just me getting up, making a sandwich, sitting back down, going to the bathroom. So, I mean, it's pretty.
That sounds not very accurate because I've wore a Fitbit before, which is like the 1,000 steps thing too, and I always had a hard time getting to that, and I never, probably the same amount as you have moved around. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking, just too much shaking.
Well, that wasn't suggestive at all.
Something I wanted to ask you, Chris, because you actually have the G Watch and the 360, so you have two Android Wear devices and battery problems, I guess, and the performance. Do you still prefer to wear the 360 just because it looks cool?
Yeah, well, I like the way. There's a couple reasons why I like the 360 over the G Watch. The way it sits on the wrist is a lot better, and the leather strap is more comfortable. It sits perfectly in the middle of my wrist. For some reason, the G Watch would always like creep back like this, so I'd have to like bend my friggin' wrist like just to see the dang time, or I'm always adjusting it and it would just creep back again, and it was really annoying. But and it's thinner, it's lower weight, so like I don't even notice that it's on my wrist. It sits on the wrist better. It's more comfortable. Performance thing is not an issue at all because I mean I'm not usually doing too much with it. And if you do use it for voice actions, those are executed pretty darn quick. I would say just as quick as the G Watch. I've done kind of like a side-by-side test, and I've done the OK Google, and then how tall is Barack Obama thing. And both of them are like bloop bloop bloop. They're like right on point with each other.
I love that. So. That's like the go-to. The Moto G tips and tricks today, and I was like, you could also ask how old is Barack Obama? And like, why is that like the go-to like example? Like, ask Google about Barack Obama.
He's the most popular man in our country.
It's just the first thing that comes to your head. It's the weirdest thing. Like, have dreams.
We need to think of a funnier like default question.
Yeah, there's got honestly like I'm gonna start because even then too, like whenever I'm like showing off the watch, people are like, oh, what does that do? I'm like, oh, check this out. How tall is Barack Obama's like wife or something like?
How old is Pauly Shore?
How old? Oh, let's see if it knows.
How do I remove this U2 album from my iPhone?
Chris, you gotta ask that question. I want to know how tall Pauly Shore is.
It's not gonna respond. It's just gonna be like, it's gonna take me to a web page or something. Show me a web link.
Why not? Pauly Shore is a popular person. This was like 1992, maybe.
Dude, no joke. I have a chick friend who's a little bit, I will say this, a little bit on the easy side. She met Pauly Shore like a couple months ago, and they like hooked up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Did he take her back to the Biodome?
Dude, he is old. What is he, like 60 years old now? And she's young. She's like young and like mega hot, and I guess she just got like starstruck somehow. And he's like, you want to come back?
Recognize him
to the Biodome.
Pauly Shore. He is age 46, height 5'7". There you go. These are questions that you find answers to on Mobile Roar.
That is insane.
All right, so Kevin, you reviewed the Moto G. Tell us a little bit about
Moto
that.
G. So,
how old is Pauly Shore?
I want to hear the answer to this Google
Oh
question.
yeah, it did. It shows like the actual. It has a card for it, so like that's awesome.
Oh god,
All
Pauly
I wanted
Shore
to know.
wash face.
Dude, and it's just got his forehead. That's it. That's the only thing it shows is just his forehead.
That's all you need, man.
Yeah. Don't you know you can count the wrinkles on a man's forehead to determine how old he is?
It's like tree rings.
The iconic Pauly Shore forehead.
Oh my gosh.
All right,
This
so
is
the
awesome.
Moto G, I never actually had a chance to really get in-depth look at the original Moto G. I mean, I checked out the handset and kind of like most Motorola handsets, it felt nice and I was impressed with the quality for the low price. But to really get a chance to check out the new Moto G, I came away really impressed. I'm the kind of person that, I mean, full disclosure, I use an iPhone, so obviously I'm not obsessed with these quad-core processors and all these specs necessarily, and I've been using a sub-HD display for a long time, so to me, I don't really need that type of performance or spec in a phone, and a phone like the Moto G for the price, I was really blown away with it. It's one of my favorite handsets I've reviewed in a while, and I'm sure if I had the new Moto X, I would feel even more so that way, but because they're sort of similar handsets, but yeah, I was just very impressed with the Moto G. Particularly impressed with just the stock implementation of Android. It performs well as is. You put that stock Android on there, and you get even a little bit more of a performance boost because you don't have all that bloat of a UI on top of it, and it's not, bloated up with extra carrier apps. It comes with some good Motorola apps that are pre-installed, but I actually think they're pretty useful. They offer some good functionality. If there's any real big drawback to it, it's just that it's limited to GSM carriers and there's no LTE right now, so it's not as widely available as it could be. But yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with it. I think there really aren't any other manufacturers out there that can produce a handset that's of the same quality at the same price as what Motorola did. So I came into it thinking this is a handset you could easily recommend to anybody on a budget. I left saying it's a handset that I would recommend to people that aren't even on a budget. I mean, if you can go in a store and spend $200 plus a contract, or you can spend less than $200 and not be locked into a contract, I mean, it's a tempting choice to make, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's awesome.
I think the only manufacturer that's made like low-end devices like that aren't horrible, I would say, is Nokia. Some of the cheap Nokia phones I've used are really nice.
Yeah, I mean, even with the lack of LTE stuff, if it was on Verizon, it didn't have LTE, I would say don't do it because Verizon's 3G is painfully slow. But when you're talking about like T-Mobile and AT&T, which has HSPA Plus and all that, that is completely doable. Their 3G networks are so fast, it's like most people won't even notice at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my phone that I use day to day is on Verizon LTE, but the review model that I have for the G is on AT&T, and I didn't even have it really connected to Wi-Fi much. I had no problems with connectivity or download speeds. That HSPA Plus is fine, and
I would
the
love to
GSM makes it
see
portable,
a speed test on that. If you can like post that, that'd be
yeah, I could.
The original
just
Moto
curious.
G, later on they came out with an LTE model. Is there any word on that for the new one?
They'll probably do it. They haven't said anything, but I'm sure they're waiting.
That it's coming at some point. I'm sure there'll be a
Seems silly.
Verizon version, and they'll
Yeah.
they'll do it eventually. But yeah,
Well,
I mean, I really like the phone, so.
The LTE one was like what, $50 more or something?
Yeah, I think that it was like couldn't be more than 250. It was maybe like 220, 230, something like that.
Mhm.
So I guess if you really need that, you can just maybe be patient and wait for it. But yeah, it looks really nice. I read the review and it seems like a pretty cool phone.
The other thing that could be kind of disappointing about it for some people is the fact that even though the screen got bigger, it didn't increase in resolution. It's got the exact same Snapdragon 400 processor that was in last year's Moto G, so they didn't even touch that. So there are certain aspects of the phone that haven't really changed much at all. The camera interface was nice and simple, but I mean, straight Google. It had some good features. Not the best image quality out there, but it got the job done, and I was pretty impressed with it. I would be happy walking around with a Moto G in my pocket as my main phone.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're missing out on anything like too major. I mean, aside from LTE, it's like you have a fully capable Android phone for $200. Freaking awesome.
Cool. So Chris, you're working on the Moto X review right now, but you've had it for a week, I guess. Do you have any thoughts for us? You can save your conclusion for the review if you want.
Yeah, I guess early thoughts is that the phone is awesome. I love it, and I'm kind of like, I have a lot of phone. I just sold the OnePlus. I'm working on selling the Xperia Z2, but right now, like as my go-to phone, it's a toss-up between the Moto X and, of course, the HTC One M8. I still can't decide, but I think I just have to like just go for it and just make a choice. Moto X, like it's gonna be my Android phone for the next whatever. It's to me, it just reminds me of like a more premium Nexus 5, and I love my Nexus 5. And Motorola talked about how the developer edition of the Moto X, well, they're not even calling it developer edition, they're calling it
Pure edition.
the pure edition, where it's not, I guess, encumbered by carrier bloat. Yeah. That version is going to get updates even faster than their carrier models, which is awesome. So that means I'm guessing it's going to get it like within that same week that a Nexus gets updated. So I think it's awesome. The Moto X is great. The camera's freaking awesome. The front-facing speaker is really cool. Sounds good. I really have very little to complain about on this phone, other than I don't even know.
Yeah,
So what are you
mentioning
gonna
those
do?
stereo speakers reminds me of something that is a really cool feature with the G. I don't know if the X has it, but
It doesn't. It just has that bottom speaker. It's kind of weird that they would include it on the G,
Yeah.
the lower end model. And I was so jazzed when I heard about that in the G. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, this is so
so
cool.
the X doesn't have the stereo speakers.
It
No.
looks like it does, but it doesn't.
But
Yeah.
the cool thing about the G on top of that is that this is something that's just not built into phones enough. It has FM radio reception. You can listen to your FM radio on there. I know that there have been phones in the past that do it, but you know,
Yeah.
not like a feature that you see too often, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I guess usually they enable it when you plug your headphones in or something. It uses your headphone wire as like the tuner or something. But
Yeah, you have to use your headphone for the G, but they have it so you can set it up to still send it out through Bluetooth speakers or through the stereo speakers on the phone.
Yeah.
So you don't.
do they have that? Is actually really cool. Do they have an app for it, like a special Motorola app for that, the FM tuner?
Yeah, they have an FM tuner app. It scans your stations, makes them nice and easy to tune in and favorites certain ones. It's not too complex, but it's a nice little interface, and it works really
Oh.
well. Sounds pretty clear.
Yeah, we don't have that in the Moto X. That's interesting.
It's weird that they include features like that in the G, but
Yeah, I mean
I think
Motorola
that's
has.
very much I don't know how to say, like a low-end phone thing that people want, like emerging markets type
An
thing. It is though, like a
What are
lot
you
of
trying to
the
say, Joe?
yeah, I mean, I guess
so
if you don't
sad.
have the connectivity to like listen to Spotify whenever you want because there's not enough
Right,
data
right,
connectivity,
right,
then an
exactly.
FM tuner is something that might be nice to have.
Yeah, and like when you go to like Mexico or Brazil and some of these, I mean, I'm sure not any of them have like these unlimited networks and stuff like we have out here. Well, actually, I only have T-Mobile, but I'm sure data is a lot probably more expensive. So yeah, when you have something like FM radio built into it, it's actually pretty darn cool feature. I like it.
All right. So look forward to Chris's full review on the Moto X coming soon.
Coming soon.
But I guess we'll move on to iOS 8, which is now officially available. And holy cow, were there a lot of jokes about this on Twitter.
Oh man.
Yeah, it did launch yesterday, and it was a bit. I would say it was a bit of the bigger launch fiascos for an iOS update that Apple's had. I mean, Apple generally at the first day is busy. Some people have trouble downloading it, installing it, but there were some kind of glaring issues with this release. For starters, if you didn't do the install over your computer, if you did it via Wi-Fi direct to your phone, you had to have 5 gigabytes of free space available on your phone to do the install. So plenty of people were scrambling to delete stuff off their phone so they could install iOS 8 and
Those poor 8 gigabyte iPhone 5C users.
Well, I thought, is it the same number? Because I saw on some people they were saying they have a 5C and they were saying that was only 4 gigabytes for them. And I saw some people saying that it required 8 gigabytes. Mine required 8 gigabytes of free storage. So I'm wondering if the reason it was like that was because it moved all your data, all your apps and data to like a specific portion of like the internal storage or something while it installed the OS. Then it tried to move everything back.
yeah, I don't know what it
I'm
would
not
do.
sure, but mine required a freaking heap ton of extra storage, and I'm
Yeah, I was concerned about it because I only have a 16 gigabyte Model 5S, and
holy cow.
I didn't get a chance to install the update until late last night. I was kind of running around all day and couldn't get it to show up on Wi-Fi, so I was kind of worried. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to like restore my phone and back it up and just do a clean install and then But I plugged it into the computer and it was fine. I guess if you do it over your computer, it downloads it to your computer instead of your phone and it installs it that way. So it's a little bit less stressful. You don't have to worry about all
I
that.
had to back it up to your computer like an animal. It's horrible.
So, have you guys tried out the keyboards yet?
I haven't
Yeah,
installed
yeah.
any third-party ones yet. For some reason, I know the keyboards would be good, but I can't bring myself to spend like the $1 or $2 that these companies.
Well,
It's like
Swipe.
Are they all like how much does SwiftKey and them cost right now?
SwiftKey is like $1 or $2 or something.
No, wait, Swipe is free. I mean,
Swipe's free.
Swipe's $1. SwiftKey's free.
SwiftKey is free. But I don't like the thing. My problem with SwiftKey is that it looks just like the Android version. They didn't really adapt to like the iOS style.
Yeah, it's like they have 3D buttons and it's ugly. It looks
Yeah,
really.
it doesn't
so
look good.
bourgeois.
I love SwiftKey on Android, but like I can't bring myself to put it on my iPhone. I'm
Yeah,
really interested
it's
in
weird.
Flexi. I want to get that, but that's like $2. Minuum looks cool. Those are all like kind of in the style and
You got to get that GIF keyboard.
Oh yeah, the GIF
I saw
one.
that. I mean, and lost in all this is that actually a lot of people forget that Apple did a lot of updates to the actual just standard Apple keyboard because I guess they understood that if they were going to allow third-party keyboards that it was going to be a lot
Yeah.
more competitive, so they had to start introducing some features like predictive text and things like that. So the actual Apple keyboard's a little bit better as is too.
I think my biggest problem with the keyboards was just trying. It's not. I mean, I guess as Android users, we're used to just install the app, and then you just you open the app, and it walks you through the whole process. Everything's very automated. Whereas this, it's like it give you all these directions to follow, and you have to remember them. Go into settings, jump into this part, general keyboard, enable it. But then SwiftKey doesn't even function unless you go back into the app and you give it permission, full access. It's called full access. So I guess this, and it gives you a little warning dialogue that says like, warning, if you give it full access, it can do whatever the hell it wants and it can transmit data to servers and yada yada. And it kind of freaks you out a little bit, but you just realize, oh, that's what SwiftKey does. It uses predictive text and download from the internet and it syncs to your account, yada yada. It was just really weird. Like everything right now seems very broken and strange. And on Android, you can have a bunch of keyboards installed and active, and you can switch between them if you want to for some odd reason, which I do. I don't know why. Every week I'm using a different keyboard. But on iOS, if you have them all enabled or whatever, and you push the little keyboard switch button, which is like this little globe icon, normally you do that to choose between emojis or keyboard. Emoji, keyboard. But if you have all these other keyboards installed, you press it, and it cycles through all these keyboards, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to my frickin' emojis, man. And it's pretty bad.
What you mentioned how you have to do it in the settings. I was gonna ask, like, when you get iOS 8 installed, is there any like how-to tips that pop up? Like, hey, you can do keyboards now.
Actually,
or
there's
what
a
is
tips app that
There's a
you can't
tips
even move off the home screen, which irritates me. You can't even put it in a folder.
I mean,
What?
I like it just sits there, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible.
It's so terrible.
Tips section.
I can't believe that.
Like most Apple apps are bad enough because you can't take them off the home screen, but at least you can all put them in like a folder so they're kind of hidden off to the side. But this tips app, for some reason, you can't nest it in a folder.
No, I think you have to read it through it first. So I went through the entire thing, and I went like learn more, and I went yes, okay, da 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 da, and like I went through I guess the whole checklist, and then it let me move it into a folder now.
Oh my god, that's bullcrap.
It's just it's funny. I'm like, oh look, there's a tip app now, and I mean it's cool because it explains some of the new features and stuff, but I don't know. At the end of the day, it's just iOS. Not much to it.
Yeah, it's not. I went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be like world changing, but it really, there are some cool new features in it, and some of the cooler features. I mean, like the widgets that are in the notification panel. I mean, that's obviously a bunch of apps are already taking advantage of it, but you know, you got to wait for your apps to start using that. Same with the keyboards. So a lot of the stuff in iOS 8 really depends on what other people do. Another big flaw with the launch was one of the biggest features, the health stuff. They found a fatal flaw in their health API, and they had to have all developers who updated their apps to integrate with their health suite. They had to be pulled from the store. They had to fix this bug.
The most annoying thing when upgrading to iOS 8 was that every app had to update itself for iOS 8 compatibility. So after you update to iOS 8, your app store's like, bloop, you have like 77 app updates, and I'm like, are you freaking serious? And I had to go through and like update all, and my phone was just like, I mean, it almost completely took me down like an entire full charge just to update to iOS 8. It was crazy.
It was a process. It took me a couple of hours.
Yeah, it was definitely a process. So crazy.
All right.
Not streamlined.
All right, so that's that, and I guess you can't use like the continuity features yet because that requires Yosemite.
Like, yeah,
and I think they've announced, or the rumors are that they'll have an iPad/OS 10 event next month to launch that stuff.
yeah. I mean, the new features are cool, but it sucks when you can't use them all, and that was kind of like the biggest one. And I don't know, like I guess the quick replies and stuff. I'm just like, someone text me, come on, I want to use quick reply. And of course, no one texts. I very rarely ever use SMS.
You know, I don't know if you looked at it, Chris, in your iPhone, but I was looking through the new messaging to see like the features for like adding and removing people from a group conversation, and I couldn't find them anywhere. I don't know what the deal with that is.
I've never ever use iMessage, and I never use text messaging, so I have no idea how to do that. But I just always, everything I do is on Hangouts or Kik, or I don't know, all these other messaging clients and stuff.
I do like a lot of the like more subtle design type updates. They made Control Center. I like the way it looks now.
Oh yeah.
The fonts kind of got a little cleaner and smaller, and it looks like a much. They did some nice little tweaks to the actual overall design that I liked.
Yeah, small updates. It's a good one though.
All right, so let's move on to some of our quicker news. So this one's kind of interesting. Today we wrote about a patent that Google has for active watching, I guess you can call it, and it's like Xbox One style watching and listening, but on your phone and any other device, I guess.
Doesn't the Amazon Fire Phone already do that?
Yeah, the Fire Phone does that, I guess. Well,
I mean, the Moto X does it too, kind of.
Not the watching part though. The watching part is the big deal. Like it's watching your mouth. Like if you read into it, it's watching your mouth so that it can put your voice to your face and know like who's actually talking. If there's several people around, like it'll see, oh, this person's mouth is moving, so they're the one that's talking right now. And
is it reading your
crazy
lips?
Stuff like that.
It's freaking awesome. They can't read lips right now. I don't think they have the technology. Give it some time, but of course, yeah, people are just, everyone wants to freak out over all this stuff. But I mean, it's not really too different from what you had, like you said, the Amazon Fire Phone, Samsung phones. You can text when you're looking at it, and then it'll keep like the display on. Moto X does the same thing with the little IR sensors. When you look away, then the screen turns off, and you look back at it, and it's watching me. It knows. How does it know? It's like it's not. I don't know, but I guess it's because it's Google, and Google's got all this data and information, and they're selling it to advertisers. Like people are freaking out. Like, what if? Are they watching me all the time? Is there some dude at Google's headquarters who's going to be watching me?
It'll eventually bleed into the advertising. Like if it sees that your teeth are a little yellow, it'll give you a bunch of toothpaste advertisements.
That will never happen.
Your eyes have been closed for 60% of this day. Here's a shipment of 5-hour energy.
Because I mean, the patent would it would at least disclose some of that stuff. I mean, they have to. It would say like, oh, and we might use some stuff for advertising, yada yada. But no, it's the whole point of this feature is so that it can make the Google voice search a lot better and more useful. So now when you're talking to it, because I guess Google's voice search now has this conversational dialogue thing that you do with it. So you can say like, how tall is Barack Obama? And then it'll say this one, and then you can say, how old is he? And then it'll show you. You don't have to say like, how old is Barack Obama? So it's cool in that regard.
Pauly Shore.
Now if there's people talking around you and you're talking to it and it's like, hey, order pizza, and you're like, where's the nearest pizza place? And it's like blah 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 blah, and you're like, okay, cool, and then you talk to your girlfriend or something like, yeah, it says Barboni's is like 4 minutes away, and then it'll be like, oh, he's not talking to me because his face isn't looking at me. His
God, that's scary. Your phone's he's not talking to me.
It'll shut down, so that it's actually more privacy because it shuts itself down when you're not addressing it, so it's not listening to these conversations it shouldn't, which I think is
and now it's
cool.
Gonna be like demanding it's gonna be like, speak to me, please.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's pretty easy to make phones better. Just make them self-aware, and then they'll know when you're talking to them. I mean, it's simple as that.
Yeah, and then maybe you'll fall in love with one and.
Make a good movie about it. I'll be happy. All right. So I thought this was kind of a funny thing. I guess there's a city in China, and they made a special sidewalk for people who are looking at their phones to walk on. It's like they divided half of the sidewalk and there's like a lane, and they like painted the lane. There's a phone
It's
icon.
so funny.
And so when you're looking down at your phone, like, okay, walk in this lane, don't run into anyone else.
I mean, is this going to be enforced by law? Is there going to be like a CHP guy like just walking around like,
I have no idea.
you're in the wrong lane, you get a ticket. Here you
Have
go.
you guys ever ran into something or someone while using your phone?
Never, because your peripheral vision, it's the way like we were made. You can see stuff around you when you're on your phone, and usually you don't hold your phone straight down while you're looking at it. You hold it like kind of in front of you so you can see where you're going. But I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever. I mean, I'm sure I've ran into something or someone that's not sticking out to me. But what I do use that as is, those situations where you're walking down a sidewalk and you have to make a choice who's going to move out of the way. I pull out my phone and look at it so that the other person has to make the choice. You know?
I never even thought about that. Yeah. I feel like that happens to me all the time. Though I'm like, and it's like this 5 seconds of total awkwardness, and it's like, eventually you're like, I'm going right, and then it's like, okay, they go right. But I mean, I
feel like, for me at least, I always pull out my phone and like I may intend to just have like a short look at my phone, but then all of a sudden, like a minute, 30 seconds later, I realize that I've been walking for like 50 feet with my head down, not looking at anything.
Like
and I'm like,
20 minutes later, you're still playing
like,
Rafflecopters or whatever.
Rafflecopters. I mean, I'm a little more oblivious to my surroundings. I feel like people that are on their phone, the only time I've never really like head-on ran into somebody, but usually people are on their phones, they don't know what's going on behind them, and they're not listening for like cues. So if you're like walking behind them, they're like blocking something, and you're like trying to get around them, like, hey, excuse me, pal, and they're like, oh, sorry, and like move out of the way. But that's pretty much the only time I've ever really encountered that. But I mean, I guess in China and stuff, like we don't really have sidewalks out here in California.
What?
But like if you're like I guess downtown and you have some place where you have these huge sidewalks, like in China, I'm sure they bike a lot, they walk a lot.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense there because it's like one of the most it is like the most populated place in the world. So like their cities are so crowded as is. So if you had 100 people on the sidewalk with their phones out, and then you got all these busy people that need to get around them.
Yeah,
the thing
businessmen.
This was tested in the U.S. I think it was earlier this summer in Washington, D.C. They painted these lines on the sidewalks, and the funny thing about it was that people who were looking on their phones didn't notice the sidewalk, so it didn't even do anything.
That makes much more sense. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't work in every country. Maybe China, where they want to be a little more courteous and respectful. I mean, they're sending kids to rehab, for using their phones too much out there and stuff. So it's a little bit.
There's a TV show about that now.
Wait, what?
That selfie show?
Yeah, is that about?
Well, it's not like about rehab or anything, but the girl in it is apparently addicted to her phone or so whatever, and the other guy is like teaching her to not use it so much.
Oh my god!
I swear that's what it's about. I just saw a commercial
That
yesterday.
sounds
and I was
as good
like,
as that
that's what
Utopia show that's on Fox.
Dude, it sounds like my life is what it sounds like. That's my girlfriend. Like all I ever talk to her about is how she's just like she just sits there on her phone like just 24/7. Like she doesn't even know what.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say that you were the one using your phone all the time.
No, I honestly don't, and that's the beauty of. Let me just plug the Moto 360 again. Is that you're not always buried in your phone. So now I could just see it and I'm like, oh, Edgar's chatting me or whoever.
Right, Chris, if you had to pick between the Moto 360, the G Watch, and Google Glass, and you only get one and you can't resell it.
Can't flip it. I would choose the Moto.
I thought you were gonna say, Kevin, choose between the Moto 360 and your girlfriend.
And you can't resell it. Like you're stuck with either your girlfriend or the Moto 360.
Oh my god.
Well, speaking of Moto 360, Motorola, we just got a question right this instant. Do you know when the Moto X and Moto Maker will be available on Verizon? George Chavez. It's Chavez minus the Z on the end, so.
Oh, I like that name. That's pretty cool. No, I don't think
just go for pre-order on where was it the pre-order that it started with?
AT&T and Unlocked from Motorola is what you can get right now. I guess the pure one that you buy comes with a T-Mobile SIM, But I don't think they said anything about Verizon yet. And there was actually just something today. Motorola Mobility said on Twitter that Sprint is not getting the Moto X at all.
Well, Verizon's definitely getting it because Chris already has a Verizon model, right?
Right. Yeah, Verizon's definitely getting it, but I don't know if we know when.
I'm sure it'll be pretty soon.
I'm pretty just like last year with the Moto X. I'm sure AT&T has that like exclusivity deal for like a week or two, and then it's going to open up for everyone else. But yeah.
I'm blanking. When is it shipping? For like AT&T.
September. What was it? The first ship date was like the 21st. I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking 23rd, so like somewhere around there, I think.
Yeah.
Next week.
All right. Okay, so moving on. Microsoft may drop the word phone from Windows Phone branding. So, I'm not so sure that's going to change anything.
What's it going to be? Really. Like the Lumia with Windows, or just like?
Yeah, it would say Windows on the back instead of Windows, and honestly, that's not going to make much of a difference at all when people see that it has Windows versus Windows Phone. Like, Windows is the problem. Phone is not.
Well, I mean, they're trying to make it sound like it's, I don't know,
it's it's like a unified operating system, so yeah, it makes sense, but it's just the Windows brand is not a hot thing. I don't know.
I mean, people, okay, let me take it back to a couple of years ago when I sold my HTC Arrive, which had Windows Phone. I don't even know what it had on it, but the guy I sold it to was super jazzed because as I'm selling it to him, he was just like, oh yeah, so like this is cool, it's got Windows, huh? And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's a Windows Phone, man. And he's like, that's cool, man. So I can like put my programs from like my computer on my phone and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. It's like slowly like started walking away, and I'm like, whatever you want to do with it, man, that's cool. Got in my car and just peeled out. Like, this is what I deal with on Craigslist. Like these guys. So, I mean, and this is a regular guy. Like, he was a young guy, just whatever. Imagine all these moms and dads. I mean, I feel like they're gonna have all these problems too, because they're gonna think like, I can run my Windows programs like Quicken or I don't know, just whatever on my Windows.
Gotta get those programs.
I gotta get those programs.
It has MS Paint. I'm in.
Yeah, MS Paint. They think they're gonna.
That was a huge like. How did the the Windows Phone not come with an MS Paint app? Like,
even just for fun,
huge missed opportunity.
Just for fun,
yeah, just for fun. Like, come on, it's a Windows Phone. Just
for the kids.
Good Paint app on it.
I mean, I think that was kind of a Balmer. He was too like inside of like I don't know, his own head or something. But now they got this new guy, Nutella or something. So like, I think he would probably have done it because he's hip and he's like, yeah, that would be a cool throwback, guys.
His name's not Nutella.
I mean, Satay Nutella.
All right, Satya Nadella.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
All right, wrapping up here. We got a couple more. Android Silver is dead. We hardly knew you.
For the 10th time. This is like the millionth time you keep hearing rumors about Android Silver being dead.
Yeah.
But I guess now it's unofficially dead.
Well, that's the problem, is that in this industry too often we take a rumor, we assume that it's reality, and then when it never actually happens, we just assume that it died. But who knows if it was ever like a real thing or not?
Well, it's like in real life, ideas get pitched and shut down like all the time.
Yeah.
And they never see the light of day. So when you hear about these things, it's not like they're getting killed off at something. It's just an idea that didn't work,
Yeah. Or, it's like an internal way they were referring to it to pitch it to manufacturers, but it was always going to just still be Nexus on the outside. Like, you never can really know what the real thing was, but it's dead.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about that too much. And then wrapping up, Note 4 pre-orders begin tomorrow, and it's shipping out October 17th. Right. I think there is no coincidence that they pre-orders start on the same day that you can go in a store and buy the iPhone 6 Plus.
So, instead of getting up at 6 a.m. to stand in line for an iPhone, you can sit at home and pre-order a Note 4.
Yeah. All right, so wins and fails of the week. Kevin.
Actually, these debuted... I guess it was 2 weeks ago at this point when Motorola launched the new G, X, and then the 360, and even the Moto Hint. But Motorola had these really nice new ads that I thought were pretty sweet when I saw them yesterday. Earlier this week, they released a video showing the behind the scenes of those ads. If you haven't seen them, they use these kind of intricate sets and practical effects to show the phone transitioning throughout a person's day into different environments. And normally people would rely on CGI or computer effects to achieve this, but Motorola, they got a team together and they built these very kind of elaborate sets with these kind of Rube Goldberg-esque sort of mechanisms, and they film these ads for these really beautiful one-shot kind of commercials. So I thought they were really cool, and the behind the scenes is a good look. Practical effects are always pretty cool. They're going back with the new Star Wars. They're going to do some more practical effects supposedly. So I like that move away from CGI. I think that's cool.
For sure. I love those commercials.
My fail of the week is last week, kind of lost in the iPhone announcement, was the fact that Apple was doing you a solid by providing you with a U2 album free of charge, the brand new album from Bono and The Edge and the rest of the gang.
Because we all would have bought it anyway, right?
And Tim Cook was so excited about this though on stage. He was like we're gonna he felt like Oprah. We're giving it to everybody for free.
Yeah, you're all getting a gift. And it's not just like they gave it. They didn't just put it up in the store as a free download. Like, oh, go download it at your convenience.
Exactly.
They put it on. They quietly slipped it onto everyone's iPhone. So you open up your iPhone.
You will listen to this.
Look at your music library, and I don't store a lot of music on my phone because I mostly use cloud services. So I'm going through my iTunes library, and all of a sudden it's very noticeable to me when I have one album from U2 on my iPhone that I definitely don't own. Well, I guess I technically own it, but because Apple said I did. Anyway.
Yeah, you're a proud owner, man.
There was a backlash about this. People couldn't figure out how to get it off their phone. So Apple actually today was like, all right, our bad. Here's a website you can go to enter your account credentials and have this U2 album wiped from your device.
Oh my god, how stupid. Is it okay if you put music in your own iTunes album or collection that you buy? Is it really easy to get rid of it, or is it hard like this too? Is it just plain hard to get rid of iTunes stuff? Period.
No, it's not hard.
Well, you can't delete anything from your phone, right? Everything, no matter what, you have to plug into iTunes.
Yeah, if it's on your phone, you have to manage it through iTunes on a computer, which happened to me because
you couldn't even delete this on your computer.
Because I don't. No, you can delete it on your computer, but I don't mess with iTunes ever, and I've never plugged my iPhone into iTunes or my computer or any of that. So this was a big deal for me because I'm I can't believe these.
Well, the thing is, when people were first complaining about it, that's where I first checked was on my iTunes library on my computer, and it wasn't there. So I was like, oh, I must not have got it. But then I realized that they were only syncing it with your phone to begin with, so you couldn't really do anything from iTunes on your computer to get rid of it. So yeah.
So they basically did make it hard to get rid of on purpose.
Yeah, well, the assumption is that U2 was like, oh, we're going to come out with an album, and then Apple said, well, if instead of selling it regularly, we'll just pay you a lot of money up front, guarantee that you'll get this huge distribution, and it'll be a win-win for everybody because U2 still makes money off the album, they still get a lot of people to download it, but that wasn't the model that worked out. This wasn't like Jay-Z giving Samsung fans a free album or whatever.
Free download, that's the thing now, right? Everyone hey, you get a free download. That's great. That's awesome. But
it's honestly crazy to me that Apple would pay them because you'd think, okay, if you can get your music on everybody's iPhone, that's huge reach. You'd think they would have to pay Apple for that.
Well, as an artist, I'm sure they're happy about it, but as the record company or whoever the record company is probably just no, you're gonna have to give us a lot of money for that. You gotta pay for every single one.
At first, when I saw the headline, I thought Apple released an app that would get rid of it, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But
dude, I would have been happier with that because then I can delete it without having to plug it into my freaking computer now.
You don't have to plug it into your computer. You just have to enter your Apple ID on a website.
Oh, okay.
Hey man, why don't you just listen to it?
I don't want to.
Well, that's the icing on the cake. Is not only is it U2 and they haven't released anything good since the '80s, but it's a bad U2 album. It's not even.
I keep seeing the commercials for it on TV, and I'm like, oh, hey, that's that iPhone album.
Did you guys see? What was it? Someone posted a funny picture of like they're like it's iOS 8, and every icon was like Bono's head.
Yeah. I'm almost surprised like the default wallpaper is not like Bono or
Bono
something.
dancing in the background. This microphone. Wild.
All right, my win of the week is going to be a Bluetooth keyboard by Microsoft.
That thing, it looks awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. It has a switch on it, so you can switch between Android, iPhone, iPad, or Windows, and then like the function keys, the specialized keys, work for whatever you're using. It's really cool. It has like a cool little case. When you open it, it's like a little ledge where you could set your tablet on there, and then use it like a laptop. Really well done. Microsoft makes pretty good keyboards, so it's kind of like one of those Logitechs is what it looks like. But it's pretty neat, I think, and it's kind of pricey. It's $80, but if you do a lot of typing on your tablet, it's probably a good thing to have. It's not as cool as the Surface keyboards. I think they should come out with those for other devices. That would be sweet. But
Wait,
they're
the
probably
Surface-
saving that for the Surface.
Those little thin ones, you mean?
Yeah,
Those,
the
like-
thin ones.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. You roll it up, throw it in your bag.
You can't exactly roll it up, but
Yeah.
that would be pretty dang cool, though. So my fail is going to be this weird new requirement in Google Play development console or whatever. Notification was popping up for people that you have to put your physical address, like where you live, or your business's headquarters or whatever, and then that will show up in the Google Play listings. Like when you scroll down to the bottom of a app, there's like the email the developer, blah 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 blah. It would show up there as like an option to contact them.
Are people like actually sending letters to people these
Bad
days?
idea.
I don't know exactly what the point of this is. Like,
I mean, I think it's for more like a business. Like they figure if you're like a legit developer, you have an
Right.
office. This is your business address.
and that's kind of what I said when I wrote about this. I was like, okay, if you're someone, your Facebook, obviously it's not a big deal to put your headquarters address on there. But if you're Joe Schmo developer, like, why do you need to
Which I mean,
put
think
your
of the
home
number-
address? I guess you could use a P.O. box. I mean, we don't know for sure if you can use a P.O. box. I'm guessing you probably can, but
Yeah, but not everybody wants to go buy a PO box or
right.
But that's the thing. It's like you think about the number of apps on the App Store, and I would be willing to bet that the majority are people who aren't a big business.
Oh,
with an office.
absolutely.
They're all people that just work
Absolutely.
at home.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of Android, right? Anyone can make an app.
You have any app store. I mean, I'd say the same thing about iOS. It's probably a lot more indie developers.
I wonder what the developer policy stuff is on iOS. Like, they don't have to disclose any of that stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I just can't wait for the first story of some angry user shows up at some guy's front door and is like, "Your app crashed."
I mean, just look at some of the reviews. They're like crazy ridiculous, but I don't know.
Yeah, you would have like Dong would have to go into witness protection.
My gosh, the Flappy Bird guy.
Yeah,
Like,
but nobody wants to go to Korea to complain to him, so
it's
I think he's
Vietnam.
probably safe.
First
Vietnam,
of all,
that's right, Vietnam. All right, people want to go to Vietnam. Never
like
mind.
these Flappy Bird crackheads. Like, hey man, I need another fix, man. I need just freaking out.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
For my wins and fails, my win is going to be the Panasonic Lumix CM1. This is another Android-powered camera, point and shoot, but it's got some pretty dang top-notch camera specs and Android specs. So I guess like we've all seen the Samsung Galaxy camera. Our own Rob Jackson is a big fan of his. Gosh, that thing is awful. It's the worst thing ever. So, okay, normally on a camera you have different sensor sizes, right? So, our smartphone cameras have the smallest friggin' sensors ever. They're so tiny, so there's really only so much light they can take in, and you have to do all this software magic effects in order to get like the ISO smoothed out and all that stuff. And then you move up to like a point and shoot camera, which is a tiny bit bigger sensor, but still very small. And then you have these point and shoot cameras like the Sony introduced, which has a 1-inch sensor, which is freaking huge. and it's almost as big as your Micro Four Thirds sensor, which is bigger than that. And then you have your full frame sensor on some of these like ridiculously priced cameras. So this sucker has got a 1-inch camera sensor, which is freaking awesome. That's like that's Sony territory, which the Sony RX 100, I believe. I think now they have a Mark II or Mark III out, which is about $1,000, roughly around there, $700-800. And this Panasonic has the same size sensor as that, so it's awesome. It's got a 2.3 gigahertz Snapdragon processor, 4.7-inch 1080p display on the back. Awesome. 2 gigabytes of RAM, micro SD card slot. It looks sexy. It's got like aluminum around it. It's got a Leica f2.8 camera lens on it.
It looks so much nicer than the Samsung cameras.
Sleek, sexy. I mean, if we can get Rob to just ditch that ridiculous Galaxy camera and get this, we will up our game like to the next level. It's going to be freaking awesome. But
is it even going to come out in the U.S. though? That's the other question.
Yeah, it's coming out in the Europe, in November.
Coming out in Europe.
It's gonna be priced around 900 euros, so pretty much right there with the Sony camera, the Sony RX 100 Mark III or whatever. And there's really no word on a North American release, but I can see them bringing it out here. I mean, cameras are very popular pretty much everywhere, so I'm sure they'll just do a little soft launch out there and eventually bring it out here. But this looks great. Like, honestly, this looks awesome. So that's gonna be my win. Definitely a win. 20 megapixels. It's got all the megapixels.
Pretty sweet.
And my fail for the week is gonna be one plus one back covers. What do they call them? Style swap covers.
Style swap.
TM trademark. Their covers got canceled. So I guess OnePlus, I mean, they had a little post in their forums about it, kind of making all these excuses and stuff, saying how the back cover on the OnePlus is really hard to remove. We didn't think it would be so hard. And I will say that is very true. On the OnePlus, I honestly thought that it was screwed in or something because I was freaking giving it all I could and I could not remove that back cover. They said it was so hard to remove that it's not gonna really perform well with these new covers, and if you gotta take these other covers off, they're gonna snap in half with like the bamboo and the wood and the denim. So all those cool style swap covers, they had bamboo, they had wood, they had denim. They talked about possibly offering leather later. All that canceled. They're just like, you have to settle with the cover that came on your phone, which sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck that bad, but this was kind of like the whole thing around OnePlus was never settle. We're gonna give you like what Motorola gives you in Moto Maker, but it's so much cheaper and all this awesomeness. And people were like really jazzed about that stuff. I was like really wanting a bamboo cover, but yeah, totally canceled. They said they'll probably bring them back for the OnePlus 1 2. So that's been confirmed. They're gonna give this another go next year. And hopefully with a lot less mistakes. I mean, I'm sure they've learned a lot within the past year.
But I think the lesson should be maybe don't say that you're going to be able to do things before you actually test if it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, maybe try it out first.
Jeez.
They could really do well to live by the axiom under promise, over deliver. Because I think it was a little bit backwards for them.
Oh my gosh, yes.
For sure.
I mean, it seems like someone just sent them. They were talking to Oppo, and they're just like, "Hey, can we make a phone with 3 gigabytes of RAM, 1080p?" And he's like, "Yeah, we can do that." They're like, "Sweet, we're gonna create the competition." They started like hyping up on Google Plus, calling out everyone else for these smartphones that settle, and they put their foot in their mouth is what they did, and it was really bad. And I mean, at the end of the day, the OnePlus One is a great phone. I love it. I think it's awesome. A lot of people I know have it, and they love it. The software on it's freaking great. It's got CM11, but yeah, it just sucks. All the problems. I mean, you can't run with the big dogs unless if you don't have any clue how. It's ridiculous. But that's my fail. So
sweet.
All right, app picks of the week. Kevin, start off.
I'm gonna kind of do a slight cop out this week and go with more general. In general, I mean, if you updated iOS 8, a ton of apps updated that had the extensions, widgets, and then we have the whole category for keyboard apps. And my app picks are going to be the keyboard apps that are available. We mentioned Flexi, SwiftKey, Swipe, Menuum. There's also a really kind of more of a joke keyboard that came out called Keymoji, which will translate your text into just emojis. So if you're interested in speaking that emoji talk that all the kids are doing these days, you can get Keymoji to do that. So really cool. I haven't had a chance, like I said, to check a lot of them out, but I'm sure I've used some of these for Android, so I kind of know what to expect, and I'm gonna download a bunch of them this weekend and really kind of see which one I like best. But yeah, just iOS 8 apps in general. There have been some wins and fails in regards to that as well, but it's a big step forward and a pretty big time for iPhone users.
Cool. My pick is going to be an Android app called Noise, spelled Noyze.
Noisy? Is that a rapper? It sounds like a rapper.
Sure. This is an app, and the cool thing about this app, this is an app, guys. So it changes the Android volume, like pop-up, I guess. And the cool thing, though, is it doesn't require root or anything, which I don't know how that's even possible, because I've done this with like exposed modules, but this is just a regular app, and it gives you like a bunch of different themes you can choose from. The one I'm using is just like a tiny little bar across the top, as you can see here. So it doesn't like get in the way of what you're doing. But there's like a bunch of other themes that you can choose too, like big Android L styled ones, and some of them you have to buy. Other ones you can get for free. You can change like the color of the little bar and things like that. It's really cool. It's free and it doesn't require root, like I said. Noyze. Check it out. Chris is amazed.
That is so awesome. Does it? So it just kind of moves it around. It doesn't actually. I was hoping it would do the thing where it would show you like your ringtone, your media volume.
Oh yeah, there is a theme that you can pick that does that too. Yeah.
Okay.
All you have to do is you go into like the what is it called? The accessibility settings, I guess, and you have to give it like access, and then that's how it works. Yeah, it's cool. All right, Chris, do you have an app for us?
Oh yes, I do. My app is gonna be Goat Simulator.
Meh.
It's freaking out for Android, and I downloaded it within 5 seconds. No questions asked. The game, I'm sure if you haven't heard about it, it's basically you're a goat, and you just cause mayhem in these destructible environments, and it was like originally created as an April Fool's joke, but I guess it caught on, and everyone was like, dude, I would totally pay money for this. So I guess the guys that made it were just like, oh, we're gonna freaking make it into a game. So there's tons of bugs and all this weird stuff that happens. The goat, sometimes his neck flips around, but that's kind of like part of the
that's part of it.
The appeal, and they're gonna leave all the bugs in there. And if the app's not crashing or the game's not crashing, then it's good. It's good. Keep it in there. But it's really fun, and it's kind of weird to kind of get used to the controls, because it plays sort of like those Tony Hawk like racer games where you have, like, you back up and you move kind of like a car or something, and you just keep mowing forward, and you can buck people, you can stick your tongue to them and drag them around and jump off trampolines, and it's pretty much just good old fashioned clean fun. I love it. It's kind of a little bit pricey though, at $5, but luckily I have a bunch of Google Play gift cards that I got for Christmas, so I had no problem buying it at all. It's awesome.
I think it's funny too, in the store description, which is loading extremely slow for me now. It says, because like you said, there's a lot of bugs in it, and they say, disclaimer: Goat Simulator is a completely stupid game, and to be honest, you should probably spend your money on something else, such as a hula hoop, a pile of bricks, or maybe pool your money together with your friends and buy a real goat.
Oh my gosh.
So yes, they're very aware of how silly the game is.
Like, honestly though, like, I mean, I left a little review on there saying how I've always dreamed about being a goat, but I mean, me and my girlfriend talk about it a lot, and I kind of want to buy a goat.
Goats?
I've been wanting to buy a goat for like a long time. I have
Chris's girlfriend sitting there with her phone as usual, and Chris is just like, "Have you ever wanted to be?" And she's just like, "What?"
Hey, babe, maybe we should buy a goat. Yeah, whatever.
That sounds like a Pauly Shore movie.
Sweet. Yeah.
Pauly Shore. Chris's review is so. Here's Chris's review in the Play Store, by the way.
Oh gosh.
Pure gaming perfection. As a child, I always dreamed of being a goat, but today I finally live it on my Android device. Thank you, Coffee Stain Studios. Feature request. Android Wear support. I don't know how, just make it happen. 5 stars.
I wanna be a goat on my watch somehow. Like a watch face with like a goat on it.
Oh
and
God.
That would be great.
You could easily make that happen.
Yeah. Come on.
Somebody make Chris a goat watch face, please.
I mean, these
Make
guys
a
are probably
watch face that is Chris morphed into a goat. I'll pay money for that.
Oh jeez.
like at night, whenever there's a full moon, my face will like transform into a goat. That'd be awesome.
See that should be your lower third profile icon. You got to get a goat in there.
That's so funny.
All right, I think that's going to wrap things up for this week. We did not get any questions, but if you would like to ask us questions, you can use our email address, podcast@mobileroar.com, or you can ask live questions like George Chav did today. You can subscribe to the audio version of the podcast on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, Windows Phone Store, everywhere else.
Is it still going to be the Windows Phone Store, or is it just going to be the Windows Store?
Oh, that's a good point. And finally, you can follow us on Twitter. Chris is at GamerCore, Kevin is at You Don't Know Kev, and I am at. Oh, we will see you guys next week. Later.
Bye.
Bye.